Well, hi, I've been given the green light to get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I am Adam Zal, head of the Israel Industry 4.0 community. And it's great to be here with all of you and our speakers. This Innovation Hunters panel is quite special for me as the head of the II4 community. But before I get into that, I need to apologize because there is some sensitivity to using the word hunting. But I know I shouldn't start out with an apology. But if you are an entrepreneur and you feel hunted, apologies. But our panelists are here hunting for innovation. But we're excited to talk about that and what we're doing. So our community, the II4 community, has the mission of delivering disruptive solutions to global manufacturing challenges. And to do this, this means bridging a couple of gaps. So the gaps between Israel and the world, and the gaps between startups and big corporations. And that is why I'm very excited to have our panelists here, because this is what they're experts at. They're experts at closing both of these gaps. And personally, they are kind of the natural leaders of our community. The true connectors, those who are connecting the dots. So it's a great pleasure to introduce our panelists. And I think we could all probably unmute ourselves, the panelists, and I'll just quickly say who we have here, and then I'll turn it over to you for a proper introduction. So from the US, thanks for joining us, Freddie Daza, Director of the Volvo Innovation Lab in Silicon Valley. Yaron Flint, Director, Innovation Strategy and Operations, Head of Israeli Operations at CoPace, and CoPace is the startup organization of Continental. Ruti Arazi, Business Development at the Israel Innovation Center with Seagate Technology. Hi, Ruti. And Ran Livnat, Innovation Director for Siemens Dynamo. So it is great to have you all here. So I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself. Yaron, I'll pick on you to start. And when you do introduce yourself, please tell us how and why you set up your innovation hunting here in Israel.
Sure. So Yaron Flint from CoPace Continental. Basically joined Continental 2.5 years ago under the group of CoPace, which is the startup organization of Continental. We were formed under the notion that Continental can do a much better job working with startups through the process and engagement, and also the taking this forward to commercial, I would say, agreements or collaboration. We have our own legal and procurement framework that allows us to run in parallel, but do things more quicker, swifter than the organization, and we have our own budgets to do POCs. So our pitch and our approach is sitting very, very closely to the business units, understanding their focus points, their need, their white spots, filling in the gaps with external technologies, helping them build the bridges and the framework with the companies, and taking this forward and even funding it. And we do that through a team of 15 people spread all across the world. And as we see it, it's very, very important for us to have foot on the ground in every domain or every location that we see of highly importance as innovation and strategic to Continental. So Israel was the second place that we placed a man on the ground after the Valley, and we are now spread in China, Eastern Coast, Singapore, and in Europe as well.
Thanks, Yaron. Ruti.
Hi, everyone. Actually, it was nice to hear Yaron's introduction. We launched the Innovation Center right before the pandemic. There are so many other innovation centers here in Israel because of the large amount of startups. Our goal, Seagate, you may know as a hard drive manufacturer, but we're actually a very large company. We like to say that we everything revolves around data is of interest to us. We look for startups in 3 different areas. Either startups that are helping us with our core business, or startups that have a lot of data that we can learn from and help as well. And lastly, which is where Industry 4.0 comes in, we look for startups that are relevant for Seagate as a customer. We have 7 factories across 5 continents, and the Industry 4.0 is a strong interest of ours. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruti. And I certainly like, and we appreciate from the Industry 4 perspective how both you and Yaron, maybe your first focus area wasn't Industry 4, but it's kind of come to be, recognizing Israel as having that innovation. We'll certainly talk about your hot topics later on, but thanks for the introduction. Freddie, over to you.
Good afternoon and good morning here in the US. So I'm Freddie Daza. I'm the director of the Innovation Lab in Silicon Valley. We don't have yet a presence in Israel, but we have been actively working with other groups, other innovation groups in Tel Aviv, in the area. We recognize the significant development that they have in Israel. And we try to expand in several areas where we have these innovation ecosystems that will allow us to tap into the knowledge and the experience and the new ideas that these startups create. And basically what we are trying to do with these innovation labs is to bridge that gap to connect the vision and the mandate that the corporation have with the drive and the new ideas that startups bring together. So I've been involved for about 2 years. And unlike other groups, even though I'm the director, the decision was made to stay here close by the corporate offices. So my team is based in Silicon Valley. They are the ones who actually get a hold and talk to the different startups, and I have constant communication with them. On the other side, I try to secure a smooth transition and a continuous communication with the corporate offices to ensure that we are relevant for the organization. Before Volvo, I worked for quite a few startups and also for Caterpillar, another OEM in the construction and mining industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Freddie. Ran, last but not least.
Okay. So I'm Ran Livnat. I'm with Siemens Digital Industries out of Israel. I've been with Siemens for quite some time. It may be a little different than my colleagues here. Industry 4.0 is what we do in this division of Siemens. We deliver technologies for manufacturing companies like Conti, Seagate, and Volvo. All of them are quite major customers of ours, and of course there are others. 3 years ago, we started the Siemens Dynamo, which is our open innovation program here in Israel, in Tel Aviv. The main mission basically is to expand our portfolio, extend our portfolio of products and solutions with fresh and innovative ideas that are coming from the outside. So not only rely on ourselves. To your question, Adam, why here? Why in Israel? A few reasons. Let's start with, we have the digital industries has a software arm in Israel. We have 300 engineers based in Israel working on Siemens' own software products for Industry 4.0. And we've seen over the years a growing stream of startups knocking at our door, trying to get connected with Siemens. Beginning maybe a few here and there, and it grew. I think the reason it grew is not because of Israel, it's because industry has started to become more and more digital in terms of data collection, in terms of data analysis. So this trend of startups has become more digital. Israel became more relevant. That's how I would phrase it. And we went with that to the corporate in Germany. We told them, look, there's something happening. We need to be part of that. And we got the green line to start Dynamo. We feel it's been proving itself in these 3 years. I'll tell a bit more when we continue.
Ron, thanks. I can imagine them knocking on your doors in this kind of natural way that Siemens expanded its activities in Israel. Thanks. So That's great introduction. So I hope everyone out there has a sense of our great panelists here. So let's get the conversation started. One side of what you're doing is you're transforming your companies, your parent companies, or that's kind of your mission. So Freddie, I don't know if everyone caught this, but you're responsible for Silicon Valley, but you're 3,000 miles away, right? You're on the other side of the U.S. in North Carolina, where Volvo has its headquarters, its North American headquarters. So you are right in there with walking, well, at least before Corona, in the hallways with all the executives. So how, from your perspective at kind of headquarters, is what you're doing in Silicon Valley actually changing what's going on at the corporation?
Absolutely. This CEO mandate and the goals that we have for 2030 is not to become a manufacturer of Volvo, of trucks, more to become a transportation solution. And to get to that point, we need to move away from the traditional business, right? And start thinking in new ways to service our customers based on what they really need and appreciate, right? And so what we try to do, at least with the approach that we had, is to ensure that we have one strong foothold in Silicon Valley, where we can, share our knowledge, share the technology that we have, but also learn what the industry is doing, learn what the startups are working on. But at the same time, if we just leave that extremely separated, is the gap that we have between the corporation and the development that we are doing with these companies becomes so vast that making that work together is extremely difficult. So we try to do that very gradually. So every time we have something, we have monthly meetings with the executives to make sure that they are aware of the startups, that we are highlighting interesting companies that we see will improve or allow us to get to the goals that we have. We also have, in part of our office in Silicon Valley, we have a corporate venture capital. And as we work together to ensure that when they do an investment, the big investment in these companies is not in making money out of the company or the appreciation of that company, is more about how can we get these technologies and these business models that they develop and bring them back into the corporate. So my work is being that liaison between the startups and the drive and the energy that they have, but make sure that we are aligned to the vision and the goals that we have, and we do that gradually and constantly communicating.
Thanks, Freddie. Thanks for giving us a window into your world. So, Ruti, over to you. First of all, I want to thank you for suggesting this panel in the first place. And I know you've recently set up shop here in Israel. And how are things going? When you look inside of Seagate and bringing the innovation to the company.
So I have to say something in favor of the pandemic. It actually brought us closer to the corporation, because everybody's now working remotely. So it doesn't actually make a difference where you are located. And I agree with what Freddie and actually what Yaron said at the beginning. We're connectors, we're innovators, we're enablers. Our goal is to find relevant people in Seagate, have their pain points heard, and try to help them make their work more effective, more efficient, hopefully less costly. And we feel like, I have to say that ever since we started, one POC, our first POC, kind of became contagious in the way that it led other people inside Seagate to come to us with pain points and have us search for technologies in Israel. So I think that was interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. So the impact is spreading as you get some early wins.
Yeah.
That's great. Ron, you're on. Feel free to jump in, or otherwise I can throw you another question.
I
Sure.
agree with what was said. I think we have this role of sitting between the startup and the corporate, and as a corporate, we are helping the corporate maybe to talk in a different language in a way, because it's a cultural change. It's about the pace in which things are being done. It's about adapting some of the procedures to this pace, legal procedure or marketing approval and stuff like that. It kind of forces the corporate to be more agile, and this is nice. We need to find those people that can make this change, like Rudy said. And in a way, last year, I think for the first time, Siemens started its own internal startup incubation program, where funding is being given to employees to start their own startup. They move away from their job. So I think it's part of this learning the language of the startup from a different direction. I wouldn't say it's the impact of Siemens Dynamo, but it's part of being more open to smaller companies and ideas from outside as well.
I'd like to relate to what Ran said in the beginning. When the world is becoming more software oriented and more automated and more cloud driven, it becomes more complex. A lot of large corporations, specifically like us in Continental, and I didn't mention that we have more than 600 or close to 600 factories worldwide. Therefore, Industry 4.0 is very, very interesting and important for us. It's a lot about education, it's a lot about understanding what can a startup bring to an organization who's been around for 150 years and what can it teach it. So I think when you start experimenting and working with, these guys at the headquarters, they start to really, really understand. And for us, for example, when I started the engagement with the tire organization, for example, we did almost nothing with startups, and in 1.5 years we have more than 25 already projects going on, which is quite impressive in 1.5 years. So it's not only about the education, but also about filling and addressing blind spots. Once you detect the sore points and work your way through them, it's becoming easier for the people on the other side to adopt and appreciate the solutions that startups are bringing.
Thanks, Yaron. By the way, for everyone out there listening in, there's a chat button on the platform below the video. So, anytime you have a question for the speakers, feel free to put that in. We'll either address it now or towards the end. But I have a follow-up question. So, Yaron, you talked about education, internally about innovation, and Ron, you also mentioned, other transforming the culture and other innovative people or departments kind of bubbling up. Freddie, when we spoke yesterday, you talked about other innovation groups inside of Volvo. It's not just yours. How do you manage all these people who raise their hands and say, yes, I want to be innovative? Yaron, I know I get the sense you're very good at this, judging by all the Continental people you managed to bring to Israel and to the events. Do you literally keep a list of the people inside, or kind of entrepreneurs, and how do you manage that? Are you kind of internal community managers?
Well, I have to say that I worked for many international groups worldwide, and I know it's going to sound a little fishy what I'm saying, but I really appreciate people in Continental. They're very, very curious, and they want to learn, and they want to be innovative, and it comes from a point that you don't have a lot of not invented here. You have a lot of, I don't know what this could bring me, educate me or show me. And then it's much easier. It's much easier to find and address the sore point of your participant on the other side. Listen to him, which I think is the key element, and start addressing, his sore points with interesting ideas and new technologies. And by that, he would be very, very open to work and support with you. And I think the major aspect then is just how to build it right. And that's a different challenge by itself. But, once you already have their ears and their willingness to do so, it's that much easier.
Thank you. Ron, Freddie, yeah.
Yep. So when every business unit or every division within Volvo find new ways or innovative ways to optimize their operation. So even though, for instance, purchasing may want to have a new ways to work with vendors, the factories may use some technologies to optimize the operation. So we try to split this into two types of innovation groups. One, which is innovation internally to optimize the operation of our internal operation. And then we have other innovations, which is create value or drive value for our customer, which is more external facing, right? So we have a very strong network where we share these lessons internally within Volvo, and as we see that, for instance, there is a company that we identified that would be fantastic for maybe manufacturing or something in our factories, I will not be able to drive that complete innovation, but I know who can help and take advantage of this opportunity for innovation. So we communicate that so these other innovation teams can take it. So my group is mainly focused on external value creation with customers, but there are other teams that are more optimizing and creating the streamlining the operation that they have in their specific area.
Adam, I think this is what referring to what I talked before, it's some kind of a cultural change, is that since we started, we are seeing more and more different groups of innovators, internal innovators. It's more divided by domains, actually, like additive manufacturing or robotics or IT, across the different business units, and the connection to these groups help us in driving the startups to the right place fast. I think we are better now. We're building this network and maintaining it. It's part of the service that we are giving here to the startup community here for our own benefit.
I kind of see it as a marketplace between us, the startups, and internally in the corporation. It has to be a win-win for everyone. And the fact that an innovation center has a budget for POCs makes it easier. The fact that it comes from the top, innovation is one of the main values from the CEO and downwards is also helping.
So Rudy, thanks. So is it all roses, or are there some challenges as well in making this transformation happen?
It's not all roses, mostly challenges.
I don't see any
processes are
roses.
very long. I have to say that the processes are very long on our side, and the bandwidth of startups sometimes isn't enough to work with corporations. So it's not all roses.
Maybe if I could take, not only it's not roses, I don't see a path in many cases, which means you need to find a path and how to steer things forward. It's a lot of challenges that are divided to both internally and externally. And if you overcome the not invented here syndrome, you still face a lot of challenges, like not interesting to work with startups, don't have the time to work with startups, or even when you want to work with startups internally, a lot of people don't really differentiate between startups and regular suppliers. And how do you treat startups that are not the regular suppliers? When you're faced with the external, and I don't need to tell you about how to dealing with startups, it's very, very complex, because not only the maturity gap, you have a lot of difficulties of people who are unexperienced in working with these large organizations. They're doing very, I would say, foolish things that could burn them with the work, and you need to mentor them and help them and support them and promote them forward in order to get to the right spot and in the right maturity and in the right level to the right people.
I think the right people, or maybe the right unit in the organization is key to talk to the right, because Siemens is like 350,000 people. You know, just going through the path can take you 2 years. So you need that's where we can help. And the other thing is also the right time. I mean, it's not enough that something is interesting on the long run. You need to hit on a need, on a pain, on an immediate pain. And then you see it moving fast. I mean, the problem that exists and there is no solution. At the moment, I remember when we just started, we not into Siemens, but we also work with partners, with customers. Keter Plastic is one of them. We introduced them in one of those events to Kitov. It's an inspection company. And right there, they have an issue with the suppliers of quality that was complaining about quality. They couldn't solve it, and it was a great fit, and it happened in 4 weeks. I haven't had a chance since then to replicate it so fast, the need and the solution. So that's, I think this is who to talk to and on the right time. These are the biggest challenges, not to waste time when there's no real need.
Yeah. Thanks, Ron, and that brings it to the next question, which is, about, how you get started with this sort of activity. So this activity of setting up your innovation centers in Israel. There's some who might be listening in or thinking about it or starting at it. So are there some, quick do's and don'ts that, Yaron, that you would throw out there?
Yes, I think all the do's are kind of the counterparty of don'ts. So I would definitely focus on a specialized entity within the organization to do so. That is not reporting to a specific business unit with a specific agenda, but could give cross-border, I think, services to the entire group, and therefore move things faster and forward with no political elements. Then by doing so, you have to have this group with their own budget and own KPIs and own procurement and legal framework. Getting KPIs from the business unit to work with startups is also something that really, really can help. And then it's very, very important to put local people on local specific sites. It really doesn't work to put someone who is not Israeli to work with Israelis and someone who is not Japanese to work with Japanese, for example. So it makes a lot of sense to put someone who is local and understands the mentality and can help bridge these gaps.
I'd like to add, at least for us, being an innovator is something that you have to have that mindset and the spirit. You need to have this resilience to withstand the failures and the judgment to say, this project needs to stop. We need to move to the next. So I think for us was the main topic is identify the right team with the right skill set, and then the enablers to make. So these are like the seed of the innovation, and then the enablers are having the right space, having the right funding, budget. They allow these seeds to grow strong. If that's kind of an analogy, but the idea with this is, for me, the most important element is to have the right team with the mindset to create innovation, to push the boundaries, to challenge the organization and be nimble enough to move fast, to face it. Like in many cases, the innovation teams have access to executives that other areas of the company will never dream of. So I think that you need to have a special spirit and this mindset of being an explorer, like Ernest Shackleton, right? You need to go to the Antarctica and you need to make sure that you have the right mindset to go across this. And then the company itself needs to make sure that they nurture this team with the right tools and elements.
Adam, I want to take your question a little backwards. I think you were directing this towards multinational that are thinking to start innovation in Israel. That was the question?
Well, I know, yeah, I'm glad you're bringing that up because, right, I know you do some very interesting triangulation and taking advantage of the fact that, Israel is a hub and there are others here, maybe your customers and
Right.
others.
I mean, yeah, but even before addressing that, Adam, I mean, I'm saying, I think when you want to start an innovation scouting or innovation program, accelerator, incubator, I mean, like Yaron said, start with the real need, with the business units. What is it that they are now looking for? Collect this before you, and then decide if it should be in Israel, in Silicon Valley, in Amsterdam, or in Shanghai. Where is the best place to fit that need, and go from there. If you decided that Israel is the right place for you, which a lot do, then also you have how to get started. And here, yes, you're right. I think the idea of working together with other multinational, this is something I've learned in the 3 years, how valuable it is working with Yaron here from Conti, working with Keter, it's an Israeli, but they're global that I mentioned, and many other multinationals that have an innovation hub here, and we collaborate. Because Yaron Conti is a customer of Siemens, and if he's looking for a solution in one of his 600 factories, something new, then we can look at it together and share our feedback and go on a proof of concept together, and that accelerate this triangulation, accelerate things. So when we started, we did it only locally, like with Strauss and with Keter and with Netafim here, but then we realized that we're not limited to do this here, and we can rely on people from outside, like Ruti or Yaron or many others, and work with them towards a joint POC outside Israel as well. So, I mean, this collaboration can be just direct collaboration. I think Volvo was smart to go with Drive, for example, where, so they kind of jumped on the infrastructure that already existed. Yeah. Honda did the same with Quantum Hub. ThyssenKrupp did the same with Impact Labs. I think when you want to get started, it's good to do it together with others.
Yes.
That are already.
I have to say that there are a lot of different models for starting an innovation center. And from what I've seen, something I really liked about Drive is that they have something called Fast Lane, I think, and which means it accelerates these processes. It's like Yaron discussed the budget issue with POCs. These things are much longer internally in large companies. And if we can accelerate it, it can help innovation.
If I can refer, sorry. If I can refer to what Ron said, first of all, I need to reciprocate and give compliments back. So yeah, it's fun to work with him as well. But apart from that, I think his point is spot on. One of the things that I found out relatively, that Israelis really like to work with each other, no matter where they are situated in which companies. And this is a very, very cool aspect, because let's say I'm working with my customer, or Ron is working with their customer on the same topic and the same issue. The first point that an Israeli would think, why not do it together? And then you start creating these collaborations between your companies who've been working for 150 years already in some cases, but they never thought about doing this same topic together through Israel. And I've seen more and more and more of this happening. So this is really, really cool and can really drive innovation between organizations.
Yeah, we actually took the name of this panel because of an internal WhatsApp group that was founded with the purpose that we all do the same thing. We all scout for companies. So why not share the knowledge between us?
Yeah.
That's also part of the network.
No, thanks so much. Freddie, from I know you're not in the Israeli crew, but what do you make of this claim of this great collaboration here? I mean, how does that compare to what you've seen in Silicon Valley and the different innovation centers collaborating?
Yeah, I think every innovation hub has some special features and characteristics that make it more attractive to certain industries and segments. If you go to Silicon, I mean, you can find anything in every single innovation ecosystem, but there are some focus areas that are a bit more, are stronger in certain ecosystems. So everything about social media, software, for retail, Silicon Valley is very strong, very solid. If you have something more about financial models, maybe Boston could be another one that can bring some other things. What I found in Israel is they have a strong technical background. So they have a very solid solution. Their technical development and their technical teams are extremely developed and sophisticated. But maybe they are not as strong in the business side as the areas as the startups in Silicon Valley. Because if you think about this, the venture capital options that they have there is very strong, and venture capital in some way is shaping the way they pitch their solution to other companies. So they become more business oriented, right? So when you talk about business to startups in Silicon Valley, they are extremely well. They articulate their message very well. Maybe the technical things are developed, but not at the same level. But I've seen as the development of the technical side in Israel, where they have a solid technical development, but maybe they do not have the coaching or the same level of sophistication on the business model.
Yeah, thanks, Freddie. So we always love to get the outside view. You know, what do you think of us? Thanks for that. So let's turn to the startups that that we're looking for the innovation that we're looking for. You know, this is an II4 Industry 4 conference. So I don't know who wants to go first. Yaron, what are the hot topics of the day or of the year in Industry 4? What are you looking for?
Well, I think that's a very, very good question, since we have just started experimenting with that. So basically, it's a lot of things and a lot of topics. We're not that advanced than Ran is with Siemens. So a lot of the topics make a lot of interest, I would say, for us, but mostly it's going to be around AI and how do you use AI within the Industry 4.0, if it's in predictive maintenance or QA processes, automation and supply chain management. We just had this discussion yesterday, and how to bring innovation to supply chain and have a cross-border, I would say, collaboration with so many countries. And one of the important elements is environmental. This is a very, very strong need from our customers and the environment to be more environmental friendly. These are not things that we are equipped to deal with, and naturally a lot of innovation and outside, I would say, solutions fit very, very nicely with our approach and our focus for the future.
And you're just to follow up back to you. I mean, when you compare your innovation searching for in other areas, not Industry 4, I don't know, maybe mobility or security, are those, is kind of your list more mature or your process different? And do you see, in 6 months, would you answer that differently? Would it be a more structured list based on what you've seen in other sectors?
For sure. In automotive, it's not that is structured. It's more even fragmentized, because show me a solution in automotive and I would say what part of that solution would exactly fit my needs. I don't think we're there yet in Industry 4.0. For example, if I look at a radar or a LiDAR company, I could tell you what part of their product can fit our product, which is not a topic in general. It's going very, very deeply into the technology and architecture. So when I talk about AI, it's specific processes for specific use cases or specific edge device, which is not a general topic at all. And when we talk, for example, on in-cabin experience, I can tell you it's very, very things that are working on personalization and GDPR compliance, so I can be more specific there.
Yeah, thanks. Ran or Ruti? Oh, you're on mute, Ran. So the first one to get off mute goes. Ran and Ruti, you're both on mute.
Okay, I'm first, yeah. Relating to Yaron again, technology-wise, yes, AI on the edge, AI on the cloud, combination, infrastructure, accelerating the generation of AI models. Definitely, this is the hot topic everywhere, and also in manufacturing, data analysis, supply chain, everywhere. This is what we see. To be more specific about the impact of the pandemic, we've seen before, but we've seen more in the robotic and automation, trying to enable autonomous production. There was less people involved, everything more automated, more control, as well as in the service side. I mean, more demand for remote expert support because people cannot travel to do the installation, to do the troubleshooting and all that. So we see growth in that. And maybe another area that is gaining, always hot in Israel, but it also showed some growth in the pandemic is anything on the cyber side, which keep seeing more facets of it, more areas to protect, different ways to attack, different ways to protect. This is what we are seeing.
Thanks, Ron. Rudy, do you have a list?
What he said. No, but I can also, yeah, they both said AI, all the buzzwords. But when the pandemic started, one of the issues we looked for was the problem that all of the factories that were in Asia used to come with equipment that came with engineers that built them. And then we needed remote assistance when the engineers couldn't fly. So we looked for remote assistance. We're now interested in a big project that will happen to do root cause analysis to make it automated. So we're looking for relevant startups in that field. We basically look for anything that is a pain point that comes from internal employers. So cyber, security, HR, very varied.
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. So you brought up that root cause analysis. I'm glad you did, because that, this came from one of your internal data scientists, and so this is a real significant problem that they have. I know you've shared some of the numbers about what a problem this is, and you're also working, going back to what we were talking about before, you're also looking for other corporates who have a similar problem and maybe tackling it together. I don't know if you want, how much you want to share. But.
Well, it's still early stage, but we are looking towards doing a small POC that will hopefully prove that automating the root cause analysis is possible, and then taking it to other manufacturers. We know that it's a relevant issue for other large companies, and we hope to do something collaboratively.
Thanks. So I'm sure more to come on that front. Again, if anyone has questions, you can put them in the chat. Otherwise, I know this will be a question in any of the startups looking at this now or later, which is how do they follow up with you? Technically, how do they follow up? But more generally, what is the right way for a startup to approach and work with your corporation? Ron, maybe start with you.
I mean, we are in Israel. We are definitely a good gateway to start. I mean, again, our focus is digital industries. We do not represent all of Siemens. There are also areas like energy, but this is the topic here. So it's when it relates to industry, we are a good entry point. And as I said, we don't have it all. I mean, we are connected to other groups across the other geographies, other business units we can connect to. Right? So reaching out to us, I would say this would be a recommendation.
You had, when we spoke yesterday, you described a couple ways not to reach out.
I spoke more about how to manage that dialogue. Okay, when you're reaching out. Okay, so maybe if that's what you're referring to, there need to be, at least we are looking for some level of maturity before you approach us, in order not to burn yourself. I mean, with all the trying to be open, there's a certain level of maturity that we at least expect from the startup professionally. Having a website, I don't know, not sending an email from Gmail, it's not a good start. If you're not there yet, then maybe you better wait until you are. From our perspective as innovation, this is one of the kind of filtering we are doing. We are telling some companies, not yet. I mean, I can present you to this group or that group, but maybe it's better we talk in 6 months after you've done maybe a POC with a local company, grew a little stronger, and then we will make the introduction. So that one tip I can give to need a certain level of maturity to interact with a large corporate like ours. And there are also some cultural issues about the communication. Maybe the others here can comment.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
I agree. I agree about the maturity issue. The company that approaches us has to have bandwidth to work with for a large corporation. These things take a long time. It's a long process, and but we have to say that we're very approachable. You can find us on LinkedIn, reach out to us personally, or to our Live Labs LinkedIn page. We answer right away.
Yeah, I'd like to add on that is one is the level of maturity of the solution, and two is the level of understanding of the pain points that we have. You know, we don't want to have a solution looking for a problem, right? We want to make sure that you thought through the pain points that we are having, or some challenges that we're having, and you bring or try to get something together rather than just trying just to, I will do whatever, just tell me, right? That's not the right approach. It has to be very, very focused. And the other thing is, in my view, you know, you can reach us out as well. We have these other events there where we try to get these early startups and just give them the opportunity to work on specific low resolution projects. But if you really want to get, you know, traction within the company, there has to be some level of maturity in you know, high level understanding of the pain point and the solution that you're trying to grab.
You know, just to add to that, apart from utilizing people on the ground and having a level of maturity, I think one key element is management of expectations. It's very, very important for the other side to understand exactly where you are and exactly where you're trying to get. So don't try to overstate your boundaries and say or present something you're not. And that's very, very important. Apart from that, it's also very important in order to know how to utilize the people you meet. And I give you a very, very simple example. A lot of startups fall in that when they meet people in events. Let's say they meet people in Continental and they say we do so and so, and they expect the other side, although they are in a different division altogether, to do the work for them and find and locate the right guy and the right person and put the deck there. It will never happen. So you need to manage expectations with the people you meet and tell them, I'd like your support. I'm more relevant to this place. This is where I am at this point, and could you help me get there?
Thanks, Aaron. You know, we covered a lot of ground in 48 minutes. You know, we've given great advice to other corporates who are setting up or looking to set up, and then we turned the attention to the startups, and you've given some great tips for how to work with you. Any other final points from our speakers? I see.
I just followed Ron and wrote our contact info in chat.
Yeah,
so
we left on the chat. We have our contacts, Yaron and Freddy. Maybe you want to add yours as well. We put it on the contact. I want to continue on what Freddy said in terms of understanding what are the needs of the corporate in front of you. You know, this level of humbleness. I mean, you need to be confident. Of course, you're a startup. You want to grow. You want to conquer the world. But when they have a meeting set up, don't talk all the meeting. You know, talk 30 minutes. Talk half of them. I mean, 30%. I mean, 50%. But listen and understand, and then decide if you are relevant or not, or what is it relevant for what you have to say. So a bit of humbleness on that regard. And the other thing is don't give up. I mean, you know, I've seen a lot of startups that we couldn't get through me, for example. So they tried another route, and that's okay. They went for a VC, and the VC was more helpful for them. It's a big company, and you can go, if something doesn't work now or with that group, it might work in a year with another group. So that's persistence is also important without being, you know, over aggressive.
I think it's like Ram said, it's very, very important to be persistent, but you need to be smart about it. You know, sending an email to everyone in the company doesn't work because people talk, and you want to be exact and find the right person, and not just spread everywhere you want to go, or you'll burn yourself there. And I think one key element for a startup to focus on is focus on the important things. You wouldn't even start to imagine how many startups are having engagements with me and discussions on the NDA phase of change this and change that. You don't want to exhaust the organization before you even start working with it. You know, move through and focus on the important things.
I think we'll have that as the final word. That was great. I'm glad we had these last comments. I want to thank our speakers so much for your time. This was great, and I really appreciate having you all here together. So thank you very much, and thank you to our audience.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks for everyone
Thank you,
listening.
Adam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.